Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my amazing co-host Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little froggy in the voice, but other than that, I'm good.
Oh, I could have so much fun with that. Learning to
I
behave today.
almost said I'm losing my voice, but I don't want you to be excited too much. What are we talking about today?
Something else that I read that really resonated with me: to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is your greatest accomplishment. That was
Mm,
Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I like just thinking about that. I'm writing right now about, whose story are you living and who's defining you and all of this, and I look at society and family and culture and everything else that defines who we are, or we allow to define who we are. And like looking at this, to be yourself in a world where everything and everyone else is trying to make you something else is really a great accomplishment. And how do you do that?
yeah.
Like, seriously, in this day and age with social media, you post something, you might get slammed, or somebody take it to a level that you don't have any control over. I think I mentioned to you when I used to blog, I had this person who was head of the military school in Romania was reading my blog. I had no idea. And I wrote a blog on leadership, and I get this message through my blog saying, "That's it, I'm divorcing my wife." And I'm going, I didn't say anything about relationships. This
That's
man
all you
has
need is
weapons.
some
I'm staying
Romanian lady to
quiet,
show
right?
up at your door, very unhappy with you.
Yeah, with weapons, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He runs a military school. So I'm Canadian, remember?
yeah.
This is not something that we deal with on a regular basis. So it was just so funny. You just don't know what people are going to say of you, see of you, and make a determination. Never mind society and peer pressure and everything else. How do you maintain your identity in all that?
It's a really, that's a really great question because I think it's a difficult one that a lot of us really struggle with in a lot of ways because I just actually spent the past week with a group of leaders that have sort of been guided and directed to lead based on an approach, a method, a model that has been utilized for a lot of years, but it's really not effective today in today's society and the approach. And the challenge that a lot of these leaders were sort of up against is how much they need to toe the line in order to stay compliant with the organization that they're representing, and then how much leeway they have to go off and carve their own path, do it their own way. And the reality was, one of the things that I had mentioned was, um, you know, there's not a right size for everyone, right? At the end of the
Hmm.
day, each of them has a different set of challenges, a different market that they're focused on, a different approach to that. We'll call it a customer base. It's really more of a support base that they're responsible for. And each organization is uniquely different and their position different, which means you have to lead different. And there's a process and an approach that the organization wants you to follow, and I think you can do that. But then I think that you're given a lot of liberties to be able to do it the way that you need to do it because you have to respond to the audience, the group that you're focused on, because A does not look like B. And so it was really interesting. I had somebody come up and talk to me and said, I loved how you kind of helped us guide and direct, sort of finding our own, leadership style and our own mission while maintaining sort of the respect of what the predetermined direction is, but doing it with our own latitude and flexibility. And many of these people were really struggling to do it any way other than what was in the manual, and not looking beyond that and looking outside of what's possible. You can be respectful of the rules of the game, but doesn't mean that you can't bend the rules slightly to be more accommodating to your specific situation. And I think that, whether it's, an organization like this, if you're trying to drive a particular objective for your company, trying to figure out how to do it your way, I think is really critical, because your way, when it resonates inside, then that's where the true version of you shows up. And that's where the real magic happens in a lot of ways. It's how your team looks at you from a leader perspective, how your customers, your clients admire you for what you do and how you do it, and not trying to just always follow the tried and true process, but bend the rules a little bit to figure out what works, and really what you can do to deliver a different approach, I think is really important.
What's fascinating? I'm going to take my coaching hat off and put my org psych hat on, looking at organizational systems and people within it. I can't tell you how many times I'm called in to work with a team where the senior leader says, I want to run this organization the way they ran General Electric, for example. I'm
Yeah.
just using that as an example. And my first question is, are you that person? You're looking at the success of an organization or a team based on how that individual led it. And I'm using the word individual.
Yeah.
That person has unique style, personality, amount of clout, different people under them that they're
Mm-hmm.
managing, different culture and everything else. So you want to take a system that worked there, implement it here with different people, different leadership, different culture, and expect to get the exact same results. And that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
No.
Where people shine is when they are truly who they are. I'm going to tick a lot of people off with what I'm about to say. And it won't be the first time, it won't be the last time. There are a lot of coaching organizations, coaching companies that go into corporations and large organizations to do coaching. They have a model of X amount of coaching, say once a week for 10 weeks. Then they have to do an ROI and they have to do a report and they get some results and they're out of there.
Yeah.
They have to follow the model of coaching that is implemented in that coaching company. There's no deviations. There's no, this person needs this. No, no, no. You follow the rule book.
You're not falling into the box that I need to check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they do get results because coaching gets results. I mean, just having an intervention itself and
Sure.
calling it as such, you're going to get results. But you bring somebody in that connects fundamentally with the people to help them see all of who they are based on, and work with them based on who they are and based on who you are, you're going to get results that far, far outweigh the ones out of the cookie cutter approach.
Yeah.
But that goes for everything. I have to speak for myself, TED Talks, because each person on the stage is so unique that I am mesmerized by what they're
Yeah.
bringing to the table. They're not bringing to the table 15 other people did this before me and I'm trying to emulate what they did. No, they're approaching things from their passions, their strengths, their unique contribution. It's unbelievable. And they're choosing to be all of who they are in a society that tries to make you good or bad or something else,
Yeah.
right? And it's harder and harder and harder. So how do you stay true to who you are? And what are the reality check conversations you have with yourself in order to maintain that uniqueness and give your unique contribution?
Yeah, I think, one of the questions I would propose is that, what is your unique value proposition? What's unique to you, what's the talent that you bring to the world that nobody else does? And we all have that, right? But we don't often spend enough time really sort of carving that out, trying to figure that out. And then asking that second question, which is, how often am I compromising that? Because I feel like I have to fit into a particular mold, or it might not be received well by the audience that I'm, presenting it to, or I'm afraid to step outside of the line because I don't want to rock the boat, or I worry about other people's opinions. When you start getting into these situations and you start asking that question and realizing some of the responses that you get as to what's really holding you back, then you're not really being true to yourself, and that is robbing somebody else of the joy and the value of what you bring to the table. And I think that's true for a leadership style. I think it's true if you're a speaker, on stage, you're leading your next Zoom call, or, you're trying to figure out how to, inspire or motivate your neighborhood association to do something, right? At the end of the day, the moment that you start compromising yourself because of the opinions of other people, that becomes a problem. And that's the big challenge. And we've touched on this a few times in a few different episodes in a little bit different capacity. But at the end of the day, when we're not being true to ourselves, we're not being true to the world. And that is the biggest problem. I think that is where we start to resent ourselves for how we respond or react to certain situations, or how we show up and how we're viewed. And we begin to resent other people for how they how they've sort of forced us down this rabbit hole. And that also creates, some underlying frustration and challenges in a variety of ways, because we feel like we're showing up and not doing the work we're meant to do, or building the kinds of relationships that we were intended to build, or we feel robbed of the experience because we're allowing somebody else to kind of control us as opposed to us controlling ourselves.
Yes, we look at what's controlling us. The point is, though, Steve, we're allowing it.
Yeah, that's
when,
true.
when we when we allow somebody else to write our story or tell us who to speak to or not to speak to, we're allowing it.
That's right.
Like the two of us don't live in a society where we'll be jailed for it. I mean, I do know that there are some societies where you speak your mind, you get thrown in prison for the rest of your life. I mean, this is not something to take for granted, for sure not. In some capacity, though, we could still be our authentic selves. And if we do everything that we can to maintain our authenticity, and we could do that without ticking off the entire world,
Yeah.
um, then we bring our unique contributions to the world,
Yep.
whether it's intentionally or not.
That's
We
right.
will attract people to us based on being who we are. Eventually, we could be the most glitzy speaker in the world, or the most well-known person in the world with no substance whatsoever. We've learned to be able to get up there and perform. That's not what this is all about. This is about actually speaking your truth from your passion, and not letting somebody else define what that's going to be.
Yep.
And there's always some way for you to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that starts by asking the questions, right? Getting into those questions, and recognizing in the moments when you're being, sort of guided or cajoled into being something you're not. That's when you have to put up your hand and say no more, right? And
That's right.
you've got to be able to have the confidence. And I think it's part of what I love about what we do with this podcast is every week we're putting something like this on the table that a lot of people really need to be thinking about and focused on, but they're not, because they don't generally have someone that's challenging them, to ask these questions or to look at these scenarios or these situations at the level that we are asking them to. And that is a powerful thing. And I remember using a personal story when you and I first became friends. One of the things that you were really good at helping me sort of find my footing, find my confidence. But I was sort of like a ping pong ball. I was being bounced back and forth between different people and different opinions about what I should do and how I should do it, how I should present, and how I should, write and do all these things. And you were really good at saying, look, you've got something of value to deliver to the world. You need to deliver it through your voice. You need to find your message, the one that resonates in your heart, and don't care what everybody else thinks. And the right audience will bubble up and find you, and the right people will show up in your life. And it's absolutely true. And I think that it's an important reminder for everybody that, when and you do know, am I living my truth? Am I doing, the work I'm destined to do? Am I speaking, from my heart, or from somebody else's perspective? When you ask these questions and the answers really fall on the negative side, maybe not, maybe I'm not being necessarily, true to my own personal truth, then that's the moment to start making some other decisions, right? Make some changes in your life and your approach. And yeah, there'll be people that will not like it, and that's okay, but they'll get glad in the same shoes they got mad. So
You know what just occurred to me? Like just this very second, would I love for the two of us to sit down in a classroom of students and have this conversation with
Oh
them
yeah.
as they're literally shaping their identity, young enough that they understand their uniqueness and what their talents are, and also young enough not to be told that they shouldn't be who they are.
Yep. I just saw something. I'm gonna have to find the video and send it to you. But there is a video of a teacher that was in first grade. She'd have all of her kids come to the mirror, and they had to shout out their unique talent. And that's how they started almost every single day of the school year. Now these kids have kind of come full circle, and uh, she she put it on, or somebody shared it on social media. But they came back because they're all graduating high school now, and they had to shout out what their, their special talent or their gift was. And it was funny because many of them had forgotten and had not actually thought about it. And what was really incredible about that was just how, once they identified with going back to that kid that was like 7 or 8 years old, and now 10 years later you're coming back into that same classroom, seeing that same teacher, seeing that you're standing before the teacher who sees that in your reflection, but you have to see it in yourself. The smiles on some of these kids' faces was just really inspiring. And we have to challenge ourselves to look in those mirrors every day and figure out what that special gift and talent is, and shout it to ourselves, because when we shout it to ourselves, we can shout it to the world.
Quick story: when I was doing my book launch for Leaders, Their Stories, Their Words, my books came in the 2 days before the launch, and there was a problem with the ink. So all the covers, you could see all the layers of the
Oh
color.
no.
And I remember being so excited that my books were finally arriving, and the UPS driver, putting them in the doorway. And I said, "It's my book." And he says, "Oh, could I wait till you open the box?" Like he was so excited for me. Opened the box, and he saw it first, I guess, as I opened the flap. And he said, "Is that the way they're supposed to look?" And when you hear that, you
Oh
know
yeah.
that not good.
Not
So I
good.
called them and I said, "My launch is in 2 days. There's a problem with the printing." They said, "Okay, we're going to send you overnight express. You're going to put in 2 copies of the book. There are 100 copies. You're going to put full copies, and the front and back covers of all the rest. So you need to tear off
Oh
all the
my.
covers, because they didn't want you to be able to sell books that were not in good shape." So I did that, sent them, and they promised once they figured out the problem that they would like courier new copies within 24 hours. And they did. They did. They were wonderful. What do I do with 98 copies of my book with no front and back cover? I wasn't going to throw them out because the insides were perfect. So I got on social media and I said, "Okay, all the teachers in this world, who has a leadership class that they could give the copies of this book to, so they could literally pick one of the leaders I wrote about
Yep.
and actually speak to why that leader resonated with them." And I'm a TED coach, right? I'm going to come into the classroom after and hear what you have to say about the chapters that or the leaders that you resonated with. Within 5 minutes, I had a local teacher say, "I run a leadership class, grade 10, and this would be phenomenal." So I dropped off the books, and I arranged to meet with the class. I did. I walk in, they all heard of TED. They all knew, we have a TED coach in the class, all of this. And I asked the question, "In what way do you make a great leader?" Silence. There wasn't one person in that. It's a leadership class, for crying out
Hmm.
loud. Not one kid said anything. So I said, "You know what? We're going to go around the room and just say what you think that you lead or you're the best at." I was trying to get them to
Engaged.
talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
The boys spoke much faster than the girls, which surprised me. And they were great at sports, or they were great at a musical instrument, or they were great at some other thing that they had taken up. I get to one of the girls, and she looks at me with her head down, and she says, "I don't do anything that's
Mm.
good." The girl next to her said, "What are you talking about? You make a great mother." Now you tell me. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm going, she's in grade 10 and she's a mother.
Wow.
So I said to her, and what are you teaching your child when you say there's nothing that you're good at? And she looked at me and she said, that is a good question. So I said, now I'm going to do something that I didn't agree to do. And your teacher's probably going to hate me for it. But I'm going to actually give you another chance. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you read and what resonated. And I'm coming back. And when I come back, I want a different kind of conversation. Because if you don't see it in grade 10, then what is the rest of your life going to look like?
Yeah.
And there you go. It is asking yourself and standing up and saying in grade 10, where peer pressure is so, so high, that this is who I am, unique to me. And that's what I pose to them. Who are
Yeah.
you, unique to you, not in relation to anyone else, but you. Where do you shine? What is your superpower?
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about when I come back.
Yeah.
We need to have those questions at the younger levels.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would. We should find maybe someone watching or listening to this podcast will have an opportunity for us to do that, because I think it is so important. You know that I do think we need to have those questions at a younger age, but I also think they need to be at our age, and I think we need
Yes.
to really figure out what that is, and don't look at it through the lens of someone else, but look at it through the lens of yourself. What do you want to bring to the world? What's your unique talent? What's your superpower? We all have the gift. We all have a gift, and there's a reason we're here. And the reality is, you got to figure out what that is so that you can not only embrace it and welcome it into your life, but don't run away from it. Be proud of it and be willing to share it to the world.
And if you're a parent or you're a boss or you're a spouse, instead of saying, how was your day? Ask, what did you learn today? And the second question, ask, what did you learn about yourself today?
Yeah.
What did you love? What did you hate? What surprised? What excited you? What made you want to do more of something? And just sit back and listen.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we also need to have more of.
Yeah. I love that. Well, this was, yet another really amazing topic. I can't wait to hear what our audience members think of this. So, Donna, how can they get engaged in this conversation? Tell us their thoughts about this episode or, any of our prior episodes.
Best way is to join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds, with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, and just share your 3 cents, your opinions, your ideas. We'd love to hear them. And we're on all podcast platforms that you could imagine. I'm discovering more all the time as they're thrown at me in my inbox. Have
Yeah.
you listened to this podcast lately?
Yep.
Yes, actually. I
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
recorded it.
I tend to
But
know those people. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know those people. Um, we would love to hear from you. We really would. And our community is continuing to grow. So welcome to all the latest additions to our
Yep.
Facebook group. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful for these opportunities to have these conversations with you, Donna. And we will be back again with another episode of Inquiring Minds very soon. But until then, Donna, have a great rest of your day.
You too.